One of the key phrases that were sung at the Grammys a couple of weeks ago from a hit song entitled Take Me to Church is destined to grow outdated for many. Apparently, nearly half of Protestant senior pastors believe that at some point people will experience their faith exclusively through the internet sometime in the next 10 years. Can you believe that? I can. I'm on the internet. With the resurgence or the ability to reach people around the world with a very small investment, with technology that you can buy right down the street, that you probably already have, it becomes very, very tempting. Now, I have been posting my sermons on sermonaudio.com since 1998. We began streaming with sermonaudio.com probably around 2000. In 1998, we started putting our Sunday morning sermons, the video portion, on television, local access channel here in town. Did that for 10 years. By 2005, I was streaming my radio show from the studio. I don't know anybody that was doing that. I think I did it much earlier than that because I remember that I did it right from this room. I was in the radio studio, had a radio sitting behind me on a desk, a microphone running from my computer to that radio, and when my show came on at 8 o'clock, my wife pushed the button to start the streaming. And so we were streaming the show from early 2000s. Eventually I did it from inside the studio when laptops became easier to handle financially. Eventually we got more sophisticated at church, and through Ustream.tv we were able to do a lot more. We still use sermonaudio.com for our Sunday morning audio and video. Here we are on the Bible Forum. Used to just be audio, now it's video. It's been video for, I'll bet you 7 or 8 years at least. Yeah, it's over 7 years. One day, you're going to be able to access church strictly from home. One of my goals in my so-called retirement is to follow up on something that I wanted to do years and years ago and never was able to do, and that's to start a Bible Institute. And I thought I could do that if I could find a facility, or maybe a church that would let me use their facility. But I would stream it. It wouldn't just be folks who lived in the neighborhood could come. But with Google Hangout, we can stream the thing and have feedback. It would be a wonderful tool. Nearly half the Protestant senior pastors believe going to church is going to be outdated in the next 10 years. Is that a good thing? No, it's not. It's good to reach out to people. We get contact from people all over the world. And it's really interesting and it's fun. And I know it's valuable. But there's never going to be a replacement for church. Theologically, according to nearly 9 out of 10 pastors, 87%, that told the Barna Group that it is theologically acceptable to seek faith assistance or religious experiences online. Notice what they're talking about. Faith assistance, religious experience. But that's not church. Nearly 4 out of 10 pastors, 39%, say they now do so themselves. I think they're talking about the fact that they stream their services. In 2000, only 78% of pastors felt online religious experiences were theologically acceptable, and only 15% used the internet for their own religious experience. That was in 2000. The internet was not set up for it, not yet. It would take another 5 years. 13% of the pastors say the risks of the internet being used to spread spiritual heresy and distort Christianity outweigh its potential to spread authentic Christianity. Half the pastors believe churches will have to have a significant website or presence on the internet in order to remain effective. In 2000, only 1 in 4 felt that way. We were one of them. Half the pastors believe that developing a significant presence on the internet is a good investment of their church's money. Amen. It is. It really, really is. In 2013, Barna also examined pastors' use of social media. Over half the churches, 57%, reported using Facebook, while 1 in 5 used Twitter. Individually, 2/3 of pastors, 66%, reported being on Facebook, while nearly a quarter said they used Twitter or had a personal blog. I have a pet peeve. We have some missionaries who use Facebook almost exclusively. What if you don't have a Facebook page? I have 2. But each one was set up as a business page, not as a personal page. And so if you have a personal Facebook page, I really can't access it. We have folks who don't always send us missionary prayer letters. They send quick things through Facebook. I don't get Facebook. I'm grateful that there are folks in our church, women, who do Facebook, and they tell us what's going on. But that could be a problem, especially when a missionary letter can be emailed as quickly as, more easily, cheaper than it can be if it's mailed. And you don't really need Facebook. And you could tweet. I can tweet. I can't do Facebook. The danger in all of this is at some point or other, people will have their church and they will be sitting at home watching their church. It won't really be church because there won't be the interaction. For some, that'll be a legitimate, reasonable evolution because there's no church in their neighborhood. Or they're shut in. They can't get out. And it will be much simpler for them. But for those who could get out and just don't, for those who have a good church in their neighborhood and just don't really want to go, they're going to lose out on something that God has built in, and it's the fellowship. I keep telling you, I've been telling you for years, church is not going and hearing somebody preach. That's a wonderful thing to have if you've got a good one. But if you didn't have a preacher at all, church would still be a benefit. You could go to church and you could go to a sermonaudio.com and you could pick a sermon from anybody. And as simple as Apple TV, you could project that up onto a screen and you would have preaching. You could do that in your basement. You could do that in your living room. You could do that anywhere. But you need all the people together, the various gifts of the Spirit and so forth, interacting and working amongst each other to actually make a church. People who will pray for you, people you would pray for. That's what a church is all about. These guys, I mean, I don't know who they are because they're talking here about Protestant. Barna talks about Protestant, and he's talking about me, and I'm not a Protestant. So you know, I don't know what kind of churches we're really talking about here. But to the extent that church becomes only online, it could be a problem. To the extent that churches would use online, it could be a boon to a lot of people who couldn't get there any other way. Apropos of none of that is an article that I ran across, I think, last week. Sarah Rodriguez found herself alone and in despair inside a hospital bathroom last December, where she stood quietly, collected herself, and prayed that God would intervene in a seemingly hopeless situation to save her infant daughter's life. I said, God, if there's any way, 30 days is not enough. The little baby was just 2 weeks old when she contracted bacterial meningitis and had sufficient brain swelling as a result. Her baby on a ventilator. Doctors delivered Rodriguez the heart-wrenching diagnosis: incompatible with life. As she stood in the bathroom thinking, she said she unimaginably distraught, having been a Christian her entire life. Abandoning God wasn't an option, but if her infant daughter died, she felt her faith would be forever changed. I know God's real. I know that He would never turn my back on Him, but I know I can't serve Him like I did before. In the days leading up to the removal of the ventilator, Rodriguez said she held out hope for a miracle, but was profoundly discouraged. They told me it's worse than we ever thought. They said there was profound damage to the child's brain. I took that whole rest of the day and I said, all right, I'm going to say goodbye. I cut locks of her hair. I painted her hands and did handprints and footprints. The mother had lost her husband to kidney cancer 2 years ago. And here she had a baby that she hardly had any opportunity to get to know. And she was going to have to take her off of life support just 1 month after birth. She walked out of the bathroom mentally prepared to say goodbye. But as doctors removed little Ellis from life support, they allowed the grieving mother to hold and to comfort her baby. The mother said something miraculous happened. Little Ellis began breathing on her own, which medical professionals previously told her would be highly unlikely. For the first hour I was rocking her. I read her a story because I'd never gotten the opportunity to give her a story. I'm giving her permission to leave, I was telling her. You get to meet your daddy today, trying to make transition as peaceful as I could. But Ellis continued breathing, defying the very prognosis that was supposed to render the child incompatible with life, and the baby continues to beat the odd months later. They said, we don't think your child would ever breathe, but if she did happen to live, she would be a vegetable. She won't ever be normal, the mother recalled. And what we found is just the opposite. She had 4 different follow-up appointments. Every single one said, we're not seeing signs of damage with this child. A physical therapist, too, said that developmentally speaking, Ellis is right where she should be. With one doctor, saying that her daughter was absolutely laughing in the face of medicine. We abort children because we don't want them. We abort children because they have damage, because they are incompatible with life. And every once in a while, these stories pop up to show that God is still in charge. And if there's laughing in heaven, they're laughing over man's puny thinking, technology, and the rest of it that would tell a mother, this child is incompatible with life. And here she is. Don't give up. Don't give up. We've got to leave you. We have spent the last 2 hours together, and it is time to pack it all in and go to bed. I'm not going to bed. I got to get ready. I got to leave first thing in the morning. Pray for me. And come back next Sunday night. Tell me what it is you'd like to talk about. We'll do that. Call me. I'd love to see if this system would work on the line so we could have a conversation. Go to the website. Pray about supporting the ministry. And I'll see you next week. God bless.